curious chimps.
You're kind of like flipping the switch and starting to figure out exactly what's affecting what, and in a subjective state is very interesting for us, obviously, but also in these medicinal avenues, which is just obviously amazing and helpful if you can take it out the bad effects and put in the good effects, or neutralize the experience and like intoxicating effects, and just leave the cure seizures thing.
Yeah, well, that's a good point, because I wanted to ask, how do these neutralizers work? Like, there's Mindmed, for example, is working on the LSD Neutralizer, which I don't know anything how that. I'm sure you have a better idea of how it functions, but basically, the premise is that if a patient is under an LSD therapy session with a psychologist, and the trip is too intense, that they can take this LSD Neutralizer, and it kind of just shuts off the experience. Like, is that complex?
It's actually not that complex. No, it's kind of like so there's a drug called Kentanserin.
Okay.
So basically, if you bind LSD to a receptor site, so let's just use the one in magenta because that's the one that produces like intoxicating effects. So if LSD comes in, so above my head is actually some molecule. These are molecules that would bind to a receptor site. These things in blue, and these molecules at the top. And so let's say a drug comes in, it comes into the receptor and it binds, and it's LSD. And as long as that drug is bound to the receptor, the person is going to be under the influence of LSD. And if they're having a bad trip, let's say, what you can inject is something, I don't even know the term you're talking. I've actually never heard of the term you're talking about, neutralizer, but I know what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
So basically, it'd be a drug. So basically, when a drug binds to a receptor, there's a certain tightness that a drug binds to a receptor. Much like if you put a baseball mitt on and put a baseball inside the baseball mitt, you can clench your hand harder and it'll be harder to pull the ball out, or you can kind of like clench your hand easier. It's easier to pull the baseball out, and we call that affinity in pharmacology, the tightness that a drug binds to a receptor. And in our case, the baseball is the drug and the glove is the receptor in this case. So with these neutralizers, what you basically need to do is you need to find a drug that binds to the orthosteric site stronger than the compound currently in there. So there's this one called Kentanserin that binds to serotonin receptors stronger than LSD. And it'll basically, you inject it into the person, it'll find its way to the receptor. And because it has stronger affinity, it'll occupy the receptor site and kick all the LSD out.
Wow.
And the trip will stop. And these drugs are often called
that's crazy.
Antagonist or inverse agonist.
Okay.
It basically binds the receptor site and stops the receptor from going through this further. They're called cellular signaling pathways. So it just kind of shuts it off. It binds to it, just shuts everything off. It's like puts the brakes on it, so to speak. Yeah.
Does it literally kick out the LSD molecule?
Yep.
And then I guess it stays there, so they're like the throughput of whatever LSD is still like circulating can't replace it because it's like tighter, like you said. The affinity is stronger.
That's exactly what happens. Yeah.
That's so funny to picture. Like, hey, get out of here, LSD.
It just floats away.
This guy's having a bad trip. He needs to chill out.
Onto the waist.
They would go through your body and be metabolized. After that, it would get kicked out of your brain, and then you would pee it out.
That's incredible. That's so effective for future treatments.
Yeah, it's actually how what's the one for heroin overdoses they administer? That works. Naloxone, maybe. I think that's what it is.
Oh no, I'm thinking methadone, like the replacement so that you don't have withdrawals. Yeah, I don't know what that.
But methadone is similar-ish. But I think the one for if somebody overdoses on heroin, you can inject. I think it's called naloxone, I believe. But that works the same way. It kicks the heroin out of the receptor site, naloxone replaces it, and the heroin can't get in.
I'm just picturing Pulp Fiction with the adrenaline shot.
Yeah.
With Uma Thurman.
That's what I was thinking too.